Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to Emmy TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon. It is 4 p.m. and the glitch is no more in the building. Right, so welcome to Emmy TV. We're going to jump right into it. Heather's in the building. Dave is in the building. And our guest today is Carnell Smith. So it's right on time. We're not going to do none of the preliminary opens. We're going to welcome Carnell in right away. Good afternoon, Carnell.
Hello, how you doing?
Real good, real good. I am glad you could be on with us today. And
thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Brief throwback. Since 2014, brother, it's almost 10 years since we sat in the same room at the Men's Issue Conference, and I am very excited to have this conversation around DNA, the paternity, and considering what we've seen with the D'Angelo Smith case and many others, as I've shared. We want to get into this conversation because sitting on the fatherhood policy group, when the D'Angelo thing came out, I shot a message to see if they wanted to get involved. And again, on that committee are a number of people. And so Carnell, Heather is here. That's Heather Miller, and then Dave is going to pop in real soon. If you can, give just a small background about who you are and the great accomplishment you've had thus far, sir.
All right, Mr. Mann, thank you. This is a great opportunity to be on your show. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Like on your side.
Yes, sir, we can hear you great.
All right, I'm Carnell Smith. I'm known as the paternity coach. I help women, men, and families deal with issues related to law, DNA, and advocacy. And that's where the tie-in comes into public policy, state, federal law. For a lot of people, though, it ties directly to paternity fraud. And what I've been successful at doing is helping inspire people to fight back. Because, as you know, the friend of the court is often enemy of the family. And it is especially dangerous to men and boys when they get caught in a legal trap called paternity fraud.
Yes. And we know how dangerous that could be. So tell the people. Yes, sir. Right. I was about to say, tell the people about your case and what you had to go through.
Okay. All right. My miserable experience is only one of the 4 ways that men could become paternity fraud victims, and that's called signing a paternity confession. You know, that great little document they get you to sign at the hospital right after they hand you the baby, and someone persuades you and tells you how much that baby looks like you, how that baby has your eyes, has your nose, and it's a lie. It's a trick to emotionally disarm you and prevent you from asking for a paternity test. In my case, it took me 11 years to find out that my ex-girlfriend had lied to me. She tricked me. She deceived me. I felt scammed. I felt duped. I felt fugabooed. And for folks in New Orleans would know what that means.
Fugabooed.
But that's right. The swindle, the hustle. It took me 11 years, and when I got to court, the judge said, it's your fault you didn't find out sooner. And the truth is, I found out she actually got pregnant 6 weeks after I broke up with her. That's not the story she told. And as we know, with several other cases there in Michigan and other states and several countries, the child's mother often has motivation to lie, to shade the truth, to do trickle truthing, which means they only give a little bit of information. And what should have been said was, Well, I was with someone else before I came to you, trying to convince you that you did it. I fought this all the way to the United States Supreme Court, proving that there's over 1.1 million men and boys that we know of who've taken the test. The test proved 0% paternity, proves they didn't do it. That's a pregnancy that we didn't commit. We shouldn't have to pay for it. We should have zero responsibility unless one of us guys in that situation is willing to formally and legally adopt the kid. However, every time I went to court, my parenting time went from unlimited to a couple of days to once every other week and then none. So why would I want to stay in a legal trap to pay for a kid that's not mine, who I can't see? And in order to pay what they demanded, I would have to lose my house, put my wife and newborn daughter out in the street. And that was just unacceptable to me. So I declared war on the system, worked with my state reps, and got the law changed in Georgia. Then I traveled to Florida, Michigan, Wyoming. I put together some drafts for North Carolina and probably about nine other states. Been to California a couple of times. And believe it or not, there are a lot of states that just really want to focus on getting the maximum amount of money for the child support program through the Title 4D system, with no regard to the truth, no regard to the facts. And if a guy asked for a DNA test, the friend of the court would often block him and refuse to let him get a DNA test.
Wow.
I think that's an injustice.
It is. It's a huge injustice. So
pay or go to prison.
Well, that's the, and doing the research, that's what we were coming up with is, in this fraternity fraud, I have people going to jail for telling that lie, right? Knowingly.
Unfortunately, we've tried to get legislation passed to at least even make it a misdemeanor, because when you commit paternity fraud, we're not talking about $50. A mother who commits paternity fraud and gets child support payments, say $500, $600, or $3,000 a month, like one of my clients. And in one case, I was actually working with a billionaire. He was ordered to pay $320,000 per month, and the kid was not his. None of us guys, when we find out the truth, are willing to fork over large sums, tens, thousands, millions of dollars for a lie. Would you trade places?
No, that's Eddie Murphy's job, brother. That's not one that's not one I want to take in, right? Heather, I know you might have a question.
That's wow. Yeah, sometimes the reality of people's experience is, it's hard to say anything more than wow. And I feel for you having to take that path and having to prove it. It's a sad state when we are forcing people into situations like that because of our own, whatever our own issues are. And I'm saddened that is one of your experiences, and that is so many that you have to help navigate these waters so that it doesn't continue to happen. But I'm grateful for you standing up and taking the next steps to make sure that the next person coming behind you has a better opportunity. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not something I desired to do.
No.
But when you see an injustice, Dr. Martin Luther King said it's always the right time to do the right thing. And keeping men and boys from going to jail or prison for a pregnancy that they didn't commit, and we can prove they didn't commit it, this just defies common sense.
Yes. I was looking at the Paternity Act of 1956 for the state of Michigan, and it is really interesting how they define the terms, how they have kind of had to amend this over time as well. I think the last amendment I saw was from 2021. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, it's mind blowing when you look at the fine print. They say you always have to read the fine print to understand what you're signing, and so I think it's important for sure. I had a couple of we were looking up some stats around this whole challenge, and some of the things that we found in our research was about 300,000 a year that so many people have this test performed. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot more that that can be documented, but just the numbers are so staggering.
Well, in accordance, it's actually more than that. According to the American Association of Blood Banks, that actually credits all of the 45 DNA labs. I'm formerly from the business, provided legal DNA services for over 10 years. So I know this stuff from firsthand experience delivering these services worldwide. There's about 500,000 men and boys who are tested each year. And I'd like to believe, with the public awareness that we've been doing for the past 2 decades, we've influenced more men and boys to get the test, because that's the only way they can be 100% sure that they did it or they didn't do it.
And that's one of what our show is about today. Should it be mandated legally that at birth that the test is taken? What is your thought on that?
If you were to, if you had Googled that term DNA testing at birth, you see I put out a press release around 2004 or 7 saying absolutely we should do DNA testing at birth, because we have the most unreliable method in getting the truth about who caused the woman's pregnancy is by asking the mother. The courts do not require the mother to answer a very critical question. See, they shouldn't be asking her, do you believe this guy is your baby's daddy or your child's father? No. Here's the question that should be asked. What is your child's conception date? And did you have intimate relations within 60 days window of that conception date for that child? It's conception date for the child plus 30 days minus 30 days. And anybody she was involved with during that window can be the child's father. See, I've interviewed several obstetrician gynecologists, and they've told me that it is not uncommon for women to come in to try to get them to change the due date so that it will line up with the guy who she wants it to be.
Wow.
And she's not likely to tell her husband that she was cheating on him.
Right, that's right.
And on my YouTube channel, The Paternity Coach, you'll see it's mostly married men.
Ooh.
But that's the story. Look, that's the story people don't want to tell.
Right. When I brought it up, it's funny. When I brought it up at the table, right, that DNA testing is one of the things that I said. DNA testing should most definitely be at birth, right? So I brought it up at the table in the room, and so you hear, no, at birth. And so, Carnell, because we've had this conversation several times, I personally tell men when they call me, before they go into court and everything, get that test so you know for sure, right? You get the over-the-counter test first. Then you know for sure. Then you go in and request the test with the court.
Well, let me correct that. Let me tell you a problem with doing the over-the-counter home test.
Yeah, Break it down for
The
me.
home test will let you know an answer. But here's a problem that I've seen happen to several guys. They don't understand that if they get those test results and the results are negative, meaning 0% paternity, probability of paternity, and said tested individual is not the biological father, that test is not admissible for evidence
Right.
in any court.
In any court. Exactly. That's why I say you
Okay.
get that,
Wait.
then go in.
Wait.
All right, go ahead.
No. If you are going to get a test, get a legal test from the beginning, just like I did, so that you now have a full chain of custody test that is admissible. And now you have if the other side object, they have to disprove your evidence.
Oh, okay.
The problem with the home test is when you take those samples, there's no proof of identity required. We don't know if you swabbed the dog, put the kid's name on it and tried to send it in, because look, just like there are mothers who are shady with the truth about paternity, there are some guys who will send in another guy to try to take his test for him.
Okay.
And look, I've caught them too.
Wow.
Good. I'm glad you corrected me on that. So I know to recommend, because what's his name? Maury had a DNA test up here. He used to do a DNA test. You know Maury, because he started his after this. Yeah. Not the Maury Povich show. This is another guy, right? So he started his DNA diagnostic testing because he was up in Michigan. His kids was visiting his grandmother and visiting his mom.
Talking about Murray David.
Yes.
You talking about Murray David?
Yep.
Yeah, I know Murray. He's got accurate DNA testing there in Michigan.
And man, his story blew me away. His mom is in North Carolina, right? And that whole
his mother and his sister says you should get paternity tested because we don't think those two kids are not yours. Turns out those kids are fathered by his best friend, the multi-millionaire car dealership owner.
See?
I got the video of the court proceedings where the ex-wife's talking about, okay, no more lies. I'm like, well, woman, you didn't forget you were married in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah, he told me he was in Michigan and they was in North Carolina. These boys look like, his mama was like, these boys look
like his best friend. And there's a reason why they look
like his best friend.
Should we say ex-best friend though?
Right.
Ex-best friend.
So,
Murray told me the judge made him and the biological father made them both pay child support.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no justice.
Yeah. That's tough. Yeah. But that's what made him start his thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the trigger.
Hey, same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
He started after I did.
Yeah, same. Me, it was the kids dying. Same here. And me was the one to validate the father. So, you find something to fix and you get into it and you do it. Dave, you got any questions?
Yeah, first I want to commend you, Carnell, for your work. I did a bit in the military, a long bit. And that was the theme for many soldiers, that they did not have validation that they were the father. And in the military, we call it I hate to use this term, but sand rack activity. Where a lot of married people are engaging overseas and come back and there's a different story. Me working in the medical field, I saw this on and on. And one of the things you quoted Martin Luther King, another quote he has is that the light of knowledge will expel the darkness of ignorance.
Come on now.
You have presented the ignorance that many people have with your light of knowledge. When you do your due diligence, you're not operating out of your emotion or your ideal of it. You now have substantial fact to validate what is the truth. And the scripture tells us the truth will set us free.
That's right,
and
John 8:32.
Yes, and unfortunately, we have as people, I go back and forth with gender thing, but we as people have walked in the ignorance of darkness for so long And only the time that we actually really step up to the plate is when we're when the dollars come up. You'll talk to many men who say, "Well, that's my kid. I know it." Pride gets in the way. I know that's my kid. Well, there's a reality that you don't know. There's an old saying back in the day, "Mama's baby, daddy's maybe."
Yep.
We use that as a joke, but that's a reality.
That's a real thing.
And unfortunately, we love to give our ladies their prop and their due. But again, we know how what is done in the dark tries to stay in the dark. But sooner or later, it's going to come out. And because you have done your due diligence, you'll put in the footwork. Now people can be set free. I was just reading an article the other day when they talked about fraternal twins, that there's a possibility that there's another father involved.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there's just so much that we walk.
Two different guys.
Two different guys. So we walk in this darkness of trying to be, if you will, respectful to the person, female, if you will, and hold on to things that our pride gets away. So we hold on to this thing that I'm just not going to be truthful about it, or I'm not going to come up and make this person face the truth. And even when you go to court, the same thing. My brother experienced this. The pastor that did my mother's eulogy experienced it. 18 years he paid. 18 years. And at the end of the day, he finally was here. But by then, you love the child. So now you're so engaged, you just forget about it. And most people are not going to fight this. And again, this is no ill to our ladies. But at the end of the day, sometimes they just don't know that, and nobody wants to be shamed.
And that's the point. That's why we shouldn't ask them. We should make that testing. Look, there's already more than 15 tests that are done on newborns, including trying to match up kids to make sure that they send the baby home with the right person, right? Because remember, there's some problems in the past where there was baby swapping that took place.
That's right.
So 2 major benefits would happen if we did DNA testing at birth. Number one, the names that are on that birth certificate would be accurate.
Yeah.
They would be verified. And it would eliminate baby swapping.
Yeah. It's so imperative that we do this test right out the gate.
Yeah,
and again, it would not, and indirectly, sad but it's true, it would also probably alleviate a lot of the shame because you do it right then.
Think about it. It would mitigate 15, 20 years of deception and court battles because, see, I know how I am. If I knew up front on day one, I would have said, well, look, good luck to you and your baby's daddy. I'm out.
Right.
Well,
look, just like the 5 pastors that I've met, the first lady of the church did this to 5 pastors. And one of those women asked the court to put the pastor in jail because he didn't agree with that idea. One of my affiliate chapters in California, the Veterans Against Paternity Fraud, they have over 600 military men, officer, non-officer, everybody, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines. Look, for all practical purposes, nobody is 100% exempt. And my attitude is, look, take the test because it is the most reliable way to get an unbiased answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the silence is deafening. So
it's funny.
Right. So Carnell, like in what you're saying, I have to agree. The possibility. See, the problem is society is bought into foolish terms, right? We really put out in magazines, on covers of magazines, on Facebook, in conversation that women cheat better than men. I say until that DNA test is requested, right?
Then it get quiet.
Then it get real quiet, right? I say, but the process is everyone has used the male as the scapegoat. Now, I'm big, because of the men's issue conference. I'm big at being accountable as a man, right? So I'm big at holding men accountable, including myself. With my divorces, it was my fault. You know what I mean? So I'm big at holding men accountable. But in this process that we're discussing, right? It's very difficult for me. My thoughts are this: with the 300,000 males or people a year who request DNA testing, majority of the male, of course, right? With the 300,000 annually out of 1 million, right? So based on 1 million, it's 300,000. That's 300,000 people, right, who may not even know that's who requested tests, right? And so in that process of those people, what is happening is the family is off. Because if this is not my child, it's disrupting my parenting style, how I parent, right? Is it my DNA? Because if it's my DNA, I know how to shape and cultivate that child. When it's not my DNA, something is off. And that happened to a number of men that I know. The process is that we as men, right, we're very selfish in our fight. I only fight for it if it happens to me. As soon as it's over with, I'm good, I'll move on. You see, you were the one that stayed and decided to do something about it, right? And it becomes a life calling. But a lot of men, as soon as, right, because that's the hard part about getting us to come together to stop some of the things that's happening to us, is because once it's no longer happened to me, I'm gonna go on and go on with my life. Like several men, like, yeah, I'm down to help with the, telling the father this, that, and the other. But since it's no longer happening to you, then it's no longer a fight. And that's where your cause, that's where we're losing in this cause, where we have to take it up. Now, taking it up, you've taken this thing to the Supreme Court and won in Atlanta. Now,
correction. When I went to the U.S. Supreme Court, they forced me to spend money to send them a copy of the Georgia law, because at the same time I was taking my case to SCOTUS, which is the Supreme Court of the United States, I was also lobbying for the Georgia law. So here was my strategy. I took my case to the U.S. Supreme Court because I thought if we could get a high ruling from the high court, then it would allow for men and boys in all U.S. states and territories to be able to use that decision if at any time a man or boy alleged to be the father turned out to not be the biological father, as everybody had assumed, presumed, or had taken Cupcake's word. When that DNA says 0, there should be no question about letting him go.
None.
Well, the justices had 2 meetings on my case, and then all of a sudden I got a 1-line statement said petition denied.
Yeah.
Now, in law, it is supposedly believed that once you go to the highest court, there are no more options for you. But I know a court that's higher than the U.S. Supreme Court.
Come on now.
And that court is where the throne room is for God, and every judge, every clerk, every friend of the court, and everybody else gonna have to bow down to that judge. And he reminded me of some things that I put in the law when I rewrote it. We had a reconciliation meeting between the Senate and the House, and they said, look here, Carnell, look, we're going to pass this bill today. Now, anything you want to do to it, you're going to have to do it right now. And in 15 minutes, I rewrote that bill on the spot in a way to help the most number of victims. And I forgot something I put in there, and I went back on February the 6th, 2003, and I won as the first guy using that law, even though I never intended to use that for me. I was doing it because I met people who were in worse shapes than me.
Yeah. That's why I'm on Paul Elam. Me and Paul Elam always sharing. I'm trying to get Paul to bring back the men's issue conference to Detroit. Next year will be the 10th year. Right? Okay. And I would love for the men's issue conference to come back, because I believe it's a way that we can do the men's issue conference here and really do the impact that he set out to do when he first brought it, before all the controversy and the feminists got involved. Now, this is you're looking at some rooted experience and conversations where we can bring in and get this information to men, as well as letting them learn some of the other intricate pieces that's inside the friend of the court that they didn't know about, that literally the friend of the court does, right? And so because of that money piece, you know, a lot of the problems that money, let me say this correctly. The money drives a lot of people into decisions, just like this D'Angelo Smith thing. I had been saying this for years. You also told me there were 20 other cases. Can you expound on that? There were 20 other cases in Michigan.
So let's clarify that. So now D'Angelo Smith, I don't know if we're related, but I know how to do DNA if he ever wants to take me up on it. All right. We can get a definitive answer. All right. What I was saying is, one of the 4 ways that men, let me just go ahead and enumerate them right now. So number 1, signing a paternity confession without proof. That's where most single men and teenage boys get trapped. Number 2, the marital presumption of paternity. Any children your wife has while she's married to you, even if you are deployed in combat, you working out of the country, you legally separated, and she lives with the boyfriend, they are required to put the husband's name on the birth certificate.
Yes, sir.
Number 3, what happened to Carnell Alexander there in Michigan? Incorrect default judgment. That means somebody can sue you for paternity who you don't know, you had nothing to do with it, but because she put your name down and you don't make it to court, the court can decide you the daddy and then refuse to let you get a DNA test. Number 4, which is where D'Angelo Smith finds himself, mistaken identity. As you would imagine, my last name being Smith is not a rare name. It is a common name, right? Mm-hmm. So when I looked up I just used my DNA and my research tools. I said, well, I wonder how many D'Angelo Smiths are there in the state of Michigan? I found 20. But this D'Angelo Smith Sr., this guy is on LinkedIn level, professional. A guy has gainfully employed. I said, I wonder how they picked him as an easy target that they could get an income deduction order on. And he says he doesn't even know this woman. Yep. Not rare. In fact, for the 2 gentlemen on the panel here, anybody can sue you today and give the court the wrong address, and there will be a judgment against you.
Yeah, that happened to me.
So you know I'm not making it up.
Yeah, that happened to me.
Yeah, it happened to a bunch of me.
That's why we say DNA test at birth or at the first hearing would eliminate this kind of fugaboos, traps, and swindles and hustles.
So, man, right. It's you know, this conversation really just blows me away every time. You know, Carnell, like just thinking about the number of cases you've dealt with, thinking about here in Michigan, thinking about the men that call every day. We get a call, and I'm always suggesting that. I'm glad you corrected me on that. So I'm, you know, because I know at one point I had Maury Davis information, so I'm gonna make sure I get that back and refer them to Maury, because Maury and John Langlois and Maury were good friends. And John is who allowed us to take Good Fathers Only to a nonprofit. They looked out. So, my last question would be, what do you think should be the next steps in moving this into a bigger or broader conversation?
Well, I'd like to do something at the federal level. I personally think we should change the whole incentive model of Title 4D and 4E. Currently, states pursue money that actually does more to separate kids from dad than to help kids connect with dads. So that's why you get the child support issue for maximum child support by minimum parenting time for the dad. Well, how do you get to be a dad if you got 16% time with the kid? And that's if you don't get interference or you don't get alienated against the kid, or mom's making plans on your court-ordered days. If we change the model so that states had an incentive to help the maximum number of kids connect with both sides of their family, then the states would do it because that would be where the money is. Currently, the states don't do it. There are almost no services for the presumed or alleged dad, whether he be a teen dad, except how to get a job. The fatherhood program will help him with some skills, and in some states, if he's broke enough to qualify to get into the program, then they will get him some skills long enough to get him a job. Okay? And I think that's good, but we can do better. How about if we help kids get frequent, consistent quality time with the dads who want to be in their life? And we've already got statistics that prove when kids have an active guiding hand of their father in their lives, a lot more of them will avoid the juvenile justice system. They will avoid the criminal court system. They will stay out of trouble. They will avoid gangs. And we can keep our little girls off the stripper pole. Boom, mic drop.
So I'm with you. I'm with you because that's where I was going. I believe that's why they do it, because they're eating off of that. The systems are eating off of the demise of the family and the children, right? And so they want to medicate, uneducate, and incarcerate. Woo!
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I almost sound like Al Sharpton on that one. Right.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
And there's money in the privatizing of the criminal justice for juvenile justice and for criminal court as well. So you privatize the prison for the youth, you privatize the prison for the adults,
right?
And you do minimum services to help deal with recidivism so that they don't go back to the old ways and the methods and habits that allowed them to get in trouble in the first place. Then that door looks like a revolving door to the jail. And since then now he's got a child support order because he couldn't pay child support while he was locked up. Right. And now that he's got a record, he can't get a job.
Right.
Can you say gonna go back to jail?
Yeah, not only that, right? The funniest thing about that whole conversation is now, I'm about to go to jail today, I am supposed to, when I'm in this court case, and this don't have nothing to do with child support, maybe I, robbed somebody, whatever the case may be, I'm going to jail, right? I am supposed to notify the court, the child support system, that I'm going to jail in order for them to pause the order while I'm in jail. And while I am in jail,
material change in circumstances.
Exactly. So this is enlightening for those who don't understand why DNA testing is so important, to know the truth so the child can be raised by the proper actual DNA representative of this child, because this person knows his seed. Well, now, wherever you had this child and is in the house, because I remember that study came out about the over-the-counter study with what was that, CVS, and they talked about 43% of those tests, right? And so in people's homes right now, there's a child that's in that house that might not be yours, and you looking at this kid going, and you wondering, and that is damaging your home. You cannot get away.
The genetics, several geneticists have done studies, and they've estimated anywhere from 5 to 15% of the general population in the United States. That guy is raising somebody else's kid,
yes,
and he doesn't know it.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I've asked this question to married and single women. If you think truth is important, would you accept going home with the wrong baby from the hospital? 100% of those women told me that would be absolutely unacceptable. So then when I asked them, why are you okay with not letting men and boys get DNA testing at birth so they can know something that you know? See, when you birth that baby, you know that baby came out of you. For the men and boys, they're going to have to take it on faith. And Carnell Smith tells them, no, brother, you need to verify by DNA.
Yes. Yes. Your question, Heather?
I had a question about during that time, if the father passes, what happens then for that family? What's the impact between the time of conception and the birth or early in that process? What happens to those families?
So let me make sure I understand your question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking if the guy who thinks he's the dad, he dies and he is the presumed father?
Yes. I mean, is there?
So that depends.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the marriage situation. Let's contrast the two. In the states that believe the marital presumption, they're going to put that husband's name on the birth certificate, even though she is currently living with the boyfriend. So the husband dies, she gets access to his estate, and the child is deemed a legal heir, even though it's a lie. And unless that man's family is willing to then challenge the marital presumption of paternity in that state, with no guarantee that they could win for the estate, most likely the mother's going to get away with it.
They call
Who said crime doesn't pay?
They call that crib jacking.
Yeah, but it's a sad thing, though.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It is.
And it is 100% preventable.
Right.
If we don't ask mothers anymore, saying, listen, this is in the best interest of your child, that your child has accurate information on their birth certificate. They'll be able to know what their accurate family medical history is. See, I talked to a guy in Australia over the Christmas break. The young man who he just paid $110,000 to raise and supported all the way up to age 20, this young man died at a gym. And they tried to figure out what happened to him with the autopsy. It was only after the autopsy and DNA testing that Mr. Mick Reynolds in Australia found out the kid wasn't his.
It wasn't even his.
He asked his ex-girlfriend, did you know that I might not be the dad? She said, yeah. But you hadn't paid me enough child support. She's still talking about the money. But after that DNA test verified that Mr. Reynolds is not the dad, she took his name off the tombstone. Cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded. What people do for money.
Don't.
So, go ahead.
So my last question. I know we're wrapping up. So my last question is: how do people support making this an official part of the I don't want to call it the struggle, or part of the next iteration of justice, of family justice?
Well, I'm going to say this. You can invest a lot of time and learn all the steps on what it means to become an effective advocate. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's easier to do with an experienced coach. Since I have drafted and written model law, gotten model law passed, I think people who've worked with me have found it to be an easier time to work with having an ally in your corner, helping you work with your legislators. I've been brought in for special legislative consulting for legislators to address their issues, their concerns, because invariably what keeps coming up is the National Organization of Women, the feminist groups. They say this is going to hurt children. But at the same time, they won't lift a finger to help kids see the 90% non-custodial parents who are dad. So what we've pointed out to the legislators is that the state is focused on making the money. The friend of the court is focused on making the money. The mom who's lying is focused on getting money. Well, isn't law supposed to be based on fairness, fact, and truth? The name for a judge is actually called a trier of fact, not feelings, not how much money's going to get into the state coffers. But for those people who want to know how to support the movement, how to learn more about it, I am Carnell Smith. I am the paternity coach. If you connect with me at thepaternitycoach.com, there are opportunities where we might do collaborations like we did here today with Calvin Mann and the team there. I also offer a complimentary consultation for people who may need services for their own case. In some cases, if I can work with them, we will take the next step. If not, I will most likely be able to redirect them on some strategies and pointers that they can pursue, either pro se pro per, meaning representing themselves, or working with an experienced family law attorney. The main thing is, don't try to navigate the matrix alone.
All right. Well, Brother Carnell, tell everybody about your book. We got the email, we got the website, but tell everybody about your book and where we can get in contact with you even more.
This is my first work. I'm currently working on a second one. This is Trapped by Law. Stop paying child support or paternity fraud. Because when a man or a teenage boy finds himself in this situation and he recognizes that Cupcake has lied to me, in some cases, she'll look up in his face and say, "Fool, you better have my money." If you want to learn some more about it, I invite you, get the book, learn about how I managed to navigate my way through a 5-year battle, change the law in 1 year, what people said was impossible. I serve a God who does the impossible. I might be able to help you, or at a bare minimum, might be able to give you some tips and pointers on how you can, A, change the law in your state, resolve your own personal situation, or just become a men's right advocate so that we can level the playing field, so that we can keep men and boys from going to jail and prison for a pregnancy they didn't commit.
Dave, tell everybody where they can reach you at.
You can reach me at David FM AM Patterson at Facebook, and you can reach me at DROME7, DEROME7 at yahoo.com or 608-343-0875. Carnell, all I can say, man, I wish I had you when I was in the Army. We could have did some damage control, brother, because I got thousands of stories to tell you. But yeah, this good work. I definitely want to be in touch. There's some other areas I'd like to touch on for the military.
All right. Love to collab with you.
All right, thank you.
Heather?
You can reach me at inspiredjourney.com, or you can reach out to me by phone at 313-759-7855.
So, as we wind this thing down, I wanted to be clear that going forward, any and everything that you will see on this podcast is going to have everything to do with family restoration, as we were doing this prior to the co-naming METV as Put Your Family First podcast. The other process to go along with this is we need to understand how important family really is and how we go about securing all family. So you don't have a DNA intruder or the wrong DNA in your home, the wrong process at the table, because it's very, very difficult for families to move forward when things are not right. Sometimes we just know. And as a male father, we know when the seed is not acting like us. We are the seed carrier. So we know when our seed is not functioning or acting or resembling us, showing any signs like who we are, especially if we get involved. The information that he gave you, just 16%. I remember the time when I was told I can only get every other weekend and only Monday to take them to school. Every other weekend, when you get into the process, that's 36 hours. If that's every other weekend, every 2 weeks, that's 36 hours. That's only 70-some hours. The courts, the people, the mom, and everybody else that is denying access is destroying children as we speak. Because that father, when involved with his child, guides them to a better place and a better location. Fathers change their whole lives to be fathers. And to the deadbeat, or whatever you want to call these men that don't want to participate in their kids, although they made them irresponsible, the lust babies, the side piece babies, the whole nine, step your game up. Right? Because just walking around talking about your sexual prowess and how you think that's cool, it comes out to be very destructive. So you're very destructive to your kids just as much as the court. So everybody got to step their game up in this process so we can have better families and better communication and raise better kids. It is it's indicative and very, very important, as I should say, for our culture, right, to understand that we are in a bad place when it comes to our children, and we cannot continue to follow this model. So I am going to say DNA at birth. We're going to get Good Fathers Only, Carnell, to say DNA at birth. That's the group I invited you to anyway. And we're going to do something where we continuously get involved. There's John Nichols. We got a number of people that are pushing co-parenting right now. But that DNA testing at birth, I'm in the room. I'm going to push this as hard as I can on the child support system, on the welfare system. Every system that's in that room will begin to hear, because I wrote this thing called time support. And the only way I can get time is if you give it to me. My name is Calvin Mann, president and founder of Encouragement Young and Good Fathers Only. This has been Put Your Family First podcast by METV. We thank you for your time, Carnell. I salute you, brother. We thank you. We love you. Let's get into Paul Elam's ear, get this thing done, and peace. Have an awesome awesome week.